So they're going to be like the bad Avengers?
Yeah, like the Suicide Squad.
Okay, but good though?
I did not say but good, no.
Okay.
Black Sox!
Oh,
Jesus,
God,
my
dude.
eyes, really?
We got him.
Totally got him.
Eli, Tom, what are you guys doing?
So problematic. Why are your dicks out?
Well, so you know how this week's episode is about the Black Sox Scandal?
Yeah, right. Well, we couldn't be bothered to Google that. That would have taken
I mean,
minutes.
I started to Google it and it seemed like a sports thing, so we just guessed.
Yeah, so Black Sox and our dicks out.
Dicks out.
Okay, what's with the rubber band?
Great question. Yep.
That is a compromise between Tom's idea and my own.
I just want to make fun of some Wikipedia articles.
Right.
All right, well, I think
Enjoy
we
a
got
little
him good.
record. Okay.
Let's go and change and record and do whatever this episode is about.
You said it, buddy.
I gotta say, I would have figured Eli would be on Tom's shoulders.
That's what you're upset about right now?
But no, I mean, it's just surprising.
Okay, yeah. Surprising. Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts. Because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Heath, and I'll be the manager today. And let's meet the bench. We have
Okay.
the right fielder, the backup right fielder, and, of course, the designated shitter, Noah, Tom, and Eli.
Well, you know what? As long as I'm ahead of Tom, I can take it.
Starting
I can
right
take
fielder.
Okay, I was trying to figure out that joke, so I looked it up. I guess right field is an insult because the ball doesn't get hit there a lot. But I also looked it up, and in the majors, they make an average of $5.2 million a year.
Jesus
So just
Christ.
on a work to dollars basis, this is my kind of job. Right field.
Yeah, and Heath, I'll have you know, now that I'm taking my IBS meds, I'm not a pinch shitter anymore.
Hi, new listener.
Wordplay. Excellent work. All right, I guess we should just get right into it. Noah, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event are we going to be talking about today?
Today, we're going to be talking about the Black Sox Scandal.
Fantastic. And what was the Black Sox Scandal?
It was a game-fixing scandal where 8 members of the Chicago White Sox conspired to throw the 1919 World Series. It was the biggest scandal in the history of American sports at the time and would remain Major League Baseball's biggest scandal until the steroid era of the modern
The
day.
Astros are cheaters. Also, the Astros are cheaters.
The Astros are cheaters who cheat. They cheat.
Do a different
Yankees won
different
the
essay.
World Series that year.
Tom, they're doing a sports one. You want to
Yeah.
go talk about John Gardner or something in the other headphone? You know, talking the...
Guys, we are not doing separate headphone podcasts just because Cecil is gone.
Okay, you never let us do anything.
Totally could do my Ben Johnson essay.
Okay, all right. Now, before we get into the details, I want to offer up a quick note on how I'm going to tell this story.
Probably like this. Quack, 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 quack. First time, some background on how the Earth formed. Quack, 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 quack.
Okay. Well, if you don't know the planet's relative gravity, none of the story would make sense. Anyway, for decades, the narrative of this event has been dominated by the 1963 book 8 Men Out by Elliot Asanoff. And Asanoff wrote a fine book by all accounts. I haven't read it, but his sources were primarily drawn from accounts by the conspirators. Of course, in one sense, those are the best people to talk about since they were in the room where it happened, right? But on the other hand, they're the ones most motivated to lie about it. So the dominant narrative of this story goes to bizarre lengths to try to exonerate the guilty parties at times. Now, I will be using that narrative as the structure for this episode, but I'll try to point out the parts that modern historians take issue with.
That's right, bitches. Get ready for the real story of the time when baseball was rigged with money differently than it is now.
It's
1919, the height of the flu epidemic, and at least some people were worried about who's on fucking first. So that would be about as stupid as having an even worse pandemic and then still holding the Olympics. That would be...
right?
Is
We
that going
record
well? Are they
in
spreading?
advance.
Is it spreading? Are there people getting it?
By now, everyone will know. So, all right. So you have to keep in mind that in 1919, the whole concept of professional sports leagues is still very new, right? I know in my head, the idea of cities having sports franchises seems as old as time, but you can only really do that once you have relatively cheap mass transit, right? You can't very well have the Brooklyn Robins playing the Louisville Grays several times a season back in the horse and buggy days. So the whole concept had to wait for accessible rail service.
Okay, I was born in the wrong era for so many reasons. Right?
Yeah, you wouldn't even have to not care. Right? So yeah,
Just
so
skip it.
the first professional team, the Cincinnati Red Stockings, only came into existence in 1869. I have no idea who they would have played
This
at the time.
themselves.
Hey, it seems like there would have to be two at first. Anyway, the National League, which is by most accounts the oldest professional sports league in the world, wasn't established until 1871. And the Major League, as we know it today, or kind of as we know it today, didn't come into existence until 1901. The first World Series was played in 1903.
What was it like?
Great question.
I skipped over 3 geological eras for your ungrateful ass. I just want to point that out. Of course. So
Do the history of the World Series. Do them all right now in his face. They're awesome.
all right, so baseball was a very different game back then. Scoring was much lower, and the game tended to be dominated by pitchers. Games also moved a lot faster back then because it just doesn't actually take that fucking long to play a game of baseball.
No, it doesn't. You could just play baseball. Just go right through it. Absolutely.
Yeah, back then they would get done with most games in under 2 hours, and that's not because there were fewer innings or fewer outs or anything. They just didn't intentionally drag ass with every aspect of the fucking game the way they do
Exactly.
now. It also was nowhere near as profitable, especially for the players. The average MLB player made more than the average worker, but they were nowhere near the millionaires that today's top players are. The highest paid player in 1919 was the vicious fucking sociopath Ty Cobb, who made $20,000 a year. That's about $300,000 in today's money. And that's obviously nothing to sneeze at, but it's like the highest paid player in 2021 is going to make $45.3 million. So like we're talking about 150 times more, even when you account for inflation.
Yeah, that's Lindor. That's a Met, by the way. A Met
Yeah,
is going to
a
make
Met.
money. 45.3 million. That's about double the salary for the entire Tampa Bay team last year.
Jesus Christ.
And they had the second best record in the league. It's ridiculous how fucking bad the Yankees are and how much money they spend.
Okay, but Noah, I do have to say this. I'm disappointed you didn't do your essay on Ty Cobb. I mean, we could have made July an old-timey racist-tacular. You really missed out here.
Okay, what is a tacular?
Oh, don't ask.
It's like 20 weeks out of the year. It's
Isn't
not.
it? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, by modern standards, baseball players were way underpaid, but they weren't all equally underpaid. And that's my way of introducing the notoriously miserly owner of the Chicago White Sox, Charles Comiskey.
Jew.
In
I
Yes.
think he's Catholic.
so,
Because he ends in a Y? Really?
I calls him like I sees him, Heath Enright. I calls him like I sees him.
So in 1894, he bought a minor league team called the Sioux City Cornhuskers. He slapped a new coat of paint on them, and he moved them to Chicago, where they would be called the Chicago White Stockings. And by any measure, he built a hell of a team. By 1919, it wasn't a happy team, though. Comiskey had earned a reputation among his players as a penny pincher. There's one example that's always given out. Like at one point, he decided to discontinue team laundry service, and he told his players they would have to wash their own uniforms. And they're super pissed. So in rebellion, they just refused to wash their shit and played in increasingly dusty, grimy uniforms until Comiskey relented.
Such a good move. Proletariat.
Well, but then when he did, he just started deducting cleaning fees from everybody's salaries. So.
Yeah, I actually tried that at TGI Fridays. It did not go well.
No, it
Okay,
didn't
but
respond
Heath,
well to
I'm
that.
proud of you for shitting your pants at the beginning of your shift, okay? Any coward can shit their pants at the end of a shift, but you did it at the beginning.
Courage.
Again,
What
I
that
just want to
is.
say that it is also still the flu pandemic, and these guys were like, you know what? I'm going to be as dirty as possible. That'll
Yeah.
show old man Comiskey. And I'm dead. I died.
Now, so by all accounts, in 1919, the White Sox were also a team that was divided in the locker room. So remember that we're on the eve of prohibition at this point. Like they've already voted for it. It hasn't taken effect yet. So the temperance movement is in many ways at the very height of its power. And that's really where the team divide was. You had one group that were like the goody two-shoes, clean cut half of the locker room. And then you had the bad boys. The more straight-laced players, later known as the Clean Sox, included pitchers Red Faber and Dickie Kerr.
Ah, the good old days when a man's name was just a noun and some sounds, right? It was just fucking...
Just you wait, Eli. Now that's going to matter because we're still at the beginning of the dead ball era, and if you want to throw a series, you kind of need the pitcher on your side. The less straight-laced players, though, notoriously dubbed the Black Sox, also had a couple of pitchers on their side, Claude Lefty Williams and Eddie Seacott.
Okay, for listeners who are not into sports, I looked it up, and the dead ball era, that was a period from about 1900 to Babe Ruth hit the ball more than the other guys. So I guess this was a period of time when baseball was somehow, and I cannot imagine how, actually less exciting than today. Take it down a notch.
Try to picture it.
It's all about the small ball and the chess game of the chef.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Bunting people across.
So Cicotte, by the way, is going to be a pretty central figure in this story. Pretty much none of Comiskey's players liked him, but Cicotte had reason to hate him more than most. In 1917, Cicotte was due a $10,000 bonus if he won 30 games during the regular season. So when he polished off his 29th win with 2 weeks left in the season, Comiskey benched his ass.
Such a good play. You should have read the contract better. That's
the right way to do it. Yeah. So, and this part is disputed, but some sources say he did a similar thing in 1918, though to Comiskey's credit, that actually probably had to do with an injury.
Well, he only had 12 wins in 1918, so that's kind of a hard sell. I mean, maybe he could like Bugs Bunny it over 2 weeks and get a whole bunch of wins with one pitch, like 1, 2, 3, they're out, and just get like a whole bunch of teams all in a row in 2 weeks. But that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
It was just that one episode.
The details are slightly different on that one, yeah. But as pissed as Cicotte was, he wasn't going to be the ringleader of this operation. That would be Charles Chick Gandil. Gandil was 6'3", which is 6'8" in today's inches.
Okay, well, there's a conversion rate for inches too. Fuck, wrong era. The wrong.
So
6'3", that's pretty good. That's not 6'4", but like that's pretty good. That's pretty tall guy.
He's pretty tall. And he was such a mean motherfucker that like, when you look at his picture today, you instinctively give it your lunch money, okay? He was described by contemporaries as a professional malcontent, and according to his Wikipedia page, he, quote, did not hesitate to use sheer strength to get his point across, end quote.
Oh, so like Ty Cobb without the principles.
Or the skill at playing baseball, as it would turn out, but yeah. Now, there are alternating accounts of how this next bit went down, and like the more dominant narrative is that a group of mobsters reached out to Gandil about potentially throwing the series. But the more modern scholarship on it pretty much definitively proves that it's actually Gandil that approached the mobsters. A lot of accounts desperately try to turn all the conspirators into like rubes that were the victims of circumstances, scared by these gangsters. So obviously the idea of them cooking up the whole idea and then bringing it to the mobsters undercuts that. I should point out that same tendency is also why every account of this story kind of starts with how miserly Comiskey was. In reality, his players were among the highest paid in the league.
Regardless of who comes up with the idea, if you do it, you're guilty of doing
it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah, exactly. But if you're threatened into it, it's easier to forgive your former heroes or whatever. So
sure.
So we really don't know the origins of the conspiracy entirely, but on September 21st, a meeting of White Sox players took place at Chick Gandil's hotel room in New York City. Back then, there was no like multi-round playoff system that like the team with the best record in the National League just played the team with the best record in the American League, and that was that. So it would have been pretty much right after the Sox clinched their spot in the 1919 World Series, and it's here that Gandil offers up his proposal. Each player that agrees to throw the game will get $10,000 for every game they lose. And unlike all but I think one of the previous World Series, the one in 1919 was a best-of-9 format. So that would be $50,000 each. Way more than any of these guys made in a year.
Right. Plus, you obviously bet against yourselves and you make way more money.
That would help too.
And then you spend that money on Bitcoin the second it comes out. Boom. Trillionaire.
There you go.
Okay, wait. And then you invest that in NFTs of internet pictures and you're back to cleaning the hotel room.
You're cleaning it up. Yep. So in all, there were 8 conspirators in the room that day. We've already mentioned Gandil, Cicotte, and Lefty Williams. There was also center fielder Oscar Happy Felsch, shortstop Charles Swede Risberg, and of course, legendary outfielder Shoeless Joe Jackson. We're going to talk about him a bit more later.
I feel like everybody who didn't have like a middle quotes name was so fucking pissed.
Yeah.
Because but that like Steve Jones. All right.
Well, yeah, no, actually, my next guy here is just Fred McMullen. He was actually useless in terms of fixing the series. Now, he was a utility infielder and barely saw any playing time, but he did overhear something about the fix, and he threatened to blow the whistle if he didn't get a cut. And lastly, there was the sad sack, the John Cusack character, third baseman George Buckweaver, the only one of the 8 that would never actually take any of the money.
You know, the next few weeks was everyone trying to kill McMullen, but he kept just like barely missing anvils and like spilling the poison that he was about to drink at the last.
And Mom says you guys have to let me conspiracy to defraud. Come on.
Yeah, right. So, and of course, bankrolling the effort is a gambling syndicate led by the notorious Arnold Rothstein.
Jew.
That one, yes.
Okay.
He will also, he will certainly eventually get his own fucking episode.
Fuck yeah.
Suffice to say, he was a real mob boss. He was the mentor to future crime bosses Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky,
Jew.
and Frank Costello, to name a few. He was also very much the kind of guy that would like break your mother's legs if he thought you were insufficiently motivated.
Okay, he was a mob boss's mob boss. I like the idea of a pro-labor socialist mob boss.
Well, then you'll love every labor union literally ever. Good news. Fun fact. Arnold Rothstein took my grandmother on a date.
I'm sure she told you that. So Game 1 of the World Series is scheduled for October 1st. There were no night games back then. There were no television stations. And we were still 2 years away from the first radio broadcast of the World Series. So this game started at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, and nobody found that weird.
Yeah, how the fuck is the World Series even worth betting on if there's nobody there to watch it or listen?
No, that's actually a really good question. The reason baseball was so popular is because you could put the scores and everything in the evening newspapers, right? That's how everybody kept up with it. So the conspirators caught a break in the lead up to the series when pitcher Red Faber came down with flu-like symptoms and got left off the roster.
1919? I'm going to guess that was the flu, Noah.
Yeah, right.
That was almost certainly the flu.
A lot of people had flu-like symptoms that year.
I'm out on a limb here. But
That year was kind of known for its flu-like symptoms, really.
He wasn't going to live in fear, though, you know.
Right. So now Faber is one of those clean socks that I was talking about earlier. There is no way he would have gone along with the fix. And you might not think that would matter much, right? Like, after all, you've got 7 players out of a 25-man roster on your side, including the star outfielder, like the star player. How hard could it possibly be to lose? Well, the Black Sox were about to learn it was a hell of a lot harder than you would think.
Yeah. Apparently, a few of them are about to panic entirely and play like they're doing an infomercial, just fucking it all up. But before we get the series going, we're going to take a quick break for some apropos of nothing.
All right, fellas, gather round. If we're going to pull off this hoosgow, we're going to need everybody's nose firmly in the pie. So let's go round here. This is Foots McClinty. He's a man to the outside. He's going to be jumping the damp and doling out the cash.
Hello?
And this is Squeaks Yellowhash, a fine first baseman, but you wouldn't know it based on the way he's going to play. Isn't that right, Squeaks?
It sure is.
And of course, where would we be without nouns? That noise a fork makes when you scrape it across the plate, the outfielder.
Aye.
Now, a quick reminder, we're going to need Gravels, Finsky, Finnison, Finheim, Fin.
Boss?
Squeaks, I was almost done with his name. Why are you interrupting me?
Gravels can't make it, so we're going to go with Cardsy Scoop Out or Ripcord Blanch Chicken.
That sounds great.
These are our names.
Yep. Our real names. And we're back. When we left off, the story was just getting done with batting practice. What's next?
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so Eddie Seacott gets the start in Game 1, and unlike the other conspirators, he's already been paid. The night before the game, he's given $10,000 in advance by Rothstein's intermediary, former world featherweight boxing champion Abe Attell, whose nickname was the Little Hebrew.
Oh, Jew.
There it is.
Yes, yeah. So
Cool.
in the bottom of the first inning, he takes the mound against leadoff hitter Maury Rath. And as a signal to the mobsters that the fix was in, he hits Rath in the back with the second pitch.
Okay. It feels like the signal could have just been, taking the 10 grand earlier. I don't understand. He hits him in the leg instead of the back. He's just like, time out. I have to make a phone call. I meant back. I meant back. Everybody saw me mean back.
I just appreciate that the mob paid before he even threw the game. Like, There's not enough honor system mobsters these days.
Right.
You know,
There's no trust in mobstering anymore. Yeah, you're right. Now, the key from this point is you got to lose, but you can't make it look like you're trying to lose. Now, baseball is the kind of game where that's relatively easy, right? Errors are already a fucking stat. Wild pitches are a thing, even in the major leagues. So you'd have thought that this would be a pretty simple ordeal, but you would have been disabused of that notion the second you saw Cicotte very obviously blow a double play in the bottom of the fourth.
Inside of the infomercial universe, yes.
Yes, exactly. He then proceeded to go haywire, according to contemporary reports, allowing a number of hits in succession, and then he topped that off with a 2-out triple to the opposing pitcher.
I'm trying very hard to picture what you just described, Noah, but I have no fucking idea what a 2-out triple could possibly be. Just like,
fair.
Clyde Froggy Bamster threw a double underplucker to the right stand, up key to the crosstown short fielder, and that's the game.
It's very close to that, actually. Yeah. So Cicotte was relieved at that point, but the Sox were already down 6-1. They'd go on to lose by an even worse margin than that.
Eddie, you don't have to limp, man. Just be bad at baseball, bud. You switching legs? Okay, he's switching legs. It's other leg.
All right, so now you got two big problems coming out of game one. The first is that Cicotte's meltdown was so blatant that sports writers at the time were already wondering in print if the series was fixed. The second was that he was the only one of the conspirators that had been paid. The rest of them figured that they would be getting their $10,000 after the game.
Well, they're mobsters. They wouldn't lie to us, right?
Yeah, exactly. But Abe Attell, the money man for Rothstein, decided that he had a way better idea. He had another $20,000 that he was supposed to distribute to the other conspirators after the game, but he decided instead to bet that $20,000 on the Cincinnati Reds in game two. And then he could just, he could pay them off and keep all the winning.
Yeah, that actually became a tradition in Cincinnati baseball. That whole idea.
So Lefty Williams is starting game two, and he's determined to lose less obviously than Cicotte. And he did. The Reds win 4-2 in what appears by all accounts to be a legitimate game. So after the game, Scandal gets a hold of Attell, and he demands some fucking money. Like, they've already thrown 2 games. Him and his co-conspirators are starting to get antsy. But Attell has this great idea. See, instead of distributing that original $20,000 that he was supposed to give him the day before and the money he was supposed to give him after that game, he figured he could keep all of that, maybe, keep Scandal at bay for one more day with $10,000 and then bet the rest of it, plus his winnings from that second game, on the Reds for game 3. Then he could pocket the winnings and then pay him. Now, the problem with that logic, though, is that Dickie Kerr was pitching game 3. He wasn't in on the fix, and he didn't give up a single fucking run.
They didn't know who was in on the fix?
Well, this idiot didn't. So Attell lost all that fucking money. All the money that was entrusted to him by the archetype of all mobsters, Arnold Rothstein.
Attell's just sitting there watching the game, just like, fuck, they better use that utility infielder soon, and he better make so many goddamn errors.
Fred McMullen, let's go.
Infielder runs on, side tackles the pitcher who isn't in on it. Sorry, he had a mosquito on his kneecaps.
Well, let's see. It's a best of 9 series. We want to make it look real. Probably bet on those boys making it a sweep for realism. I'm very bad at mob stuff.
He was very bad at mob stuff. Okay, to be honest, like, the conspirators probably could have lost game 3 even with Kerr pitching, but most of them hadn't been paid, and nobody had been paid the full $20,000 they were owed to that point. So some of them decided to send a message by actually playing really good ball. Hell, fucking Scandal drove in 2 runs early in the 3-0 win.
They show up the next day. Guys, I found a severed horse head in the dugout. That's new. What is this?
Yeah, that wasn't here last night, was it? Yeah. So Cicotte pitched game 4, and though he was a little less flagrant about it, he still made some super obvious errors and added to the general suspicion about the whole series. By now, Rothstein had a new money man.
Oh, he did. He replaced the guy who used all his money on magic beans. That guy.
that he did, yeah. So Scandal gets a full $20,000 after game 4, which he splits evenly between himself and 3 of the conspirators. But everybody's starting to get a little pissed about the discrepancy, between how much they were promised and how much they're actually getting. And it's not like they can go back and win those previous games if Rothstein doesn't make good.
We will build a spite time machine. Give us our $5.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So they lose game 5, but Dickie Kerr pitches again in game 6. and they win that one, leaving the series at 4-2. Seacott's pitching again, but he hasn't seen a dime since that first $10,000 payment, and the papers are already calling him a cheat. So he buckles down, and he plays a hell of a game, and the Sox win 4-1. So now, all of a sudden, the Sox are only one game down, and they're 2 games away from winning the fucking series. Now, Rothstein is smart enough. He didn't bet on any individual game, but he's got $270,000 riding on the series. That's like $4 million in today's money.
See, if I had $4 million riding on something, I would make sure all my accounts were in order with the guys so pissed about money that they were willing to throw the World Series. But hey,
Yeah,
that's
right.
me. That's me. I'm not the archetype of mobsters.
And the mobsters show up with bats to make a point. Like, okay, no, I see it now. We'll come back to something different.
Come back with a different thing.
Doesn't make sense.
Only
at
building
all.
that wouldn't work in. It's crazy.
That's cricket bats. We'll do cricket bats next.
What a week.
So, okay. So Lefty Williams, who's slated to pitch in Game 8, gets a visit that night from a man that history knows only as Harry F. Now, Harry F. makes it super clear to Lefty that both he and his family would be in serious trouble if the Sox somehow managed to win Game 8. And he was so convinced by this visit that he might as well have started off by throwing his first pitch into his own fucking face. By the end of the first inning, the Reds are up 4-0. It would never be that close again.
First hour of the game, he's just hitting every batter in the back on the second pitch. Guys, you see this, right? This is what's happening. You see, I'm helping. I help.
I once had a work event at a minor league baseball game, and twice in that game, the players just ran into each other trying to catch the ball. And now I'm wondering if that was a fixed minor league game.
All of a sudden, the rubber explodes like a car.
All right, so by the time the series was over, a lot of sports writers had given up on any pretense that it was a legitimate contest. One contemporary journalist mentioned in the wiki, Hugh Fullerton of the Chicago Herald and Examiner, was so disgusted by the Sox ineptitude in throwing the damn series that he said no World Series should ever be played again. By the start of the next season, the rumors were so rampant that a grand jury was impaneled to investigate the issue, and it turns out that when he was facing perjury charges, Eddie Seacott was pretty forthcoming about his involvement.
Right. So, Eddie, we just want to ask you a few questions. I threw the World Series.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get some cops around here. I mean, I just want to know if you want to hear the specials tonight.
The answer is either soup or salad.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
So as soon as Seacott's confession comes to light, Comiskey suspended all 7 players involved. Scandal wasn't with the team anymore. And less than a month later, 8 players and 5 gamblers had been implicated, and a string of indictments followed. The supposedly notoriously stingy Comiskey cut a $1,500 check to everybody who played in the series but wasn't in on the fix. That would have been the difference in how much they'd have made if they won and how much they made for losing. The resulting trial was, of course, a fucking circus. Somehow, right before the trial, by the way, a few pieces of key evidence went missing from the Cook County Courthouse, including the signed confessions of both Eddie Seacott and Shoeless Joe Jackson. Those would show up later in their lawyer's possession. Ultimately, after a month-long trial and 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of not guilty for every player involved.
The jury got the yips. They couldn't turn double play. Just trying to make them see how hard it is to turn double play? No, we didn't throw this. It's hard to do. I get it.
Guys, is it me or is every member of the jury Arnold Rothstein in a different hat or mustache? Sorry, what? Shut the fuck up? Oh, yeah, I'll shut the fuck up.
I should have already done that. Now, one of the most enduring questions to come out of this scandal revolves around the guilt of Shoeless Joe.
Okay, though not unremarkably, Shoeless Joe was seen sporting $2,000 Gucci loafers and changing his stupid fucking nickname immediately after the series.
He definitely was shot afterwards, yeah. So with the exception of that one time when he signed a full confession, he always maintained his innocence.
Like Sirhan.
Yeah, exactly. He did take money from the syndicate. That much can be proven. But whether he did anything at all to throw the series is a lot harder to answer. And not only did he have the best batting average in the series, at .375, he had the best batting average in the history of the World Series to that time. He hit the series' only home run. He handled 30 balls in the outfield with no errors, and he threw out 5 base runners.
Okay, so he's definitely a cheater, but the question is whether or not he sucked at it? I'm glad we cleared that up.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah.
I would have thrown out 6 guys if I was playing at my fullest, just to be clear.
So ultimately, it wouldn't matter, though. To have any chance at all of legitimizing their sport after this big-ass scandal, Major League Baseball knew that they had to come down hard on everybody involved. So the team owners got together and created the office of Commissioner of Baseball. Now, they offered this position to another guy that probably deserves his own episode eventually. This is his real fucking name. Kennesaw Mountain Landis. Yeah, he owed his name to the battle where his dad was when he got shot during the Civil War. And he had the kind of reputation for toughness that dude named after a battle kind of should.
My name would be Heath Hospital Bed that we bought for the extra room that we made into an area. It's sad.
So Landis is a judge in Chicago that made a name for himself by imposing tough fines on big businesses, including a record-smashing $29 million fine that he imposed on Standard Oil for price fixing that got overturned on appeal. Ultimately, Landis agreed to take the job and tie his sterling reputation to the tarnished image of baseball, but he did so on the condition that he be granted essentially fucking unlimited power over the sport. And one of his first actions was to ban every player remotely involved in the Black Sox scandal for life. Like even Buck Weaver, the innocent yokel who attended the first meeting with Scandal, said no and never took a penny, was permanently banned from the sport for his failure to alert the team's owner once he knew that might be happening.
Okay, good. You're supposed to tell about that. Like,
yeah.
Maybe we could get Kennesaw Mountain to take over all the police now. That would be great.
He was a notorious fucking racist, so probably
maybe not.
But
Exactly.
yeah,
Already there. One thing he did there made sense
Already
as it
there.
relates to the thing I said.
No, despite
Anti-racism
right,
was the message of my thing.
Exactly.
Tie cup.
So despite numerous appeals and popular support from the banished players, none of them would ever play again. In fact, when they tried to organize a barnstorming tour outside of the league's authority, Landis issued a warning that any players that participated would join them on the blacklist. And as harsh as he was, the punishment worked. Faith publicly was restored in the integrity of the game. Crowds did come back to the ballparks, and baseball players never cheated or involved the league in a major scandal ever again.
All right. And if you had to summarize what you've learned in one sentence, what would it be?
Kevin Costner should have just grown more fucking corn. They didn't deserve to play.
That movie. And are you ready for the quiz?
Sure, why not?
All right, Noah, which of the following baseball wacky facts is true? A, Eddie Gaedel was the shortest man to ever play in a Major League Baseball game. He was 3 feet 7 inches tall, and he was put in the game entirely as a publicity stunt.
Such a smart play.
B, there is an actual minor league baseball team named after the Springfield Isotopes of the Simpsons episode Hungry Hungry Homer, and they are the Albuquerque Isotopes. C, pitcher Doc Ellis says he threw his June 12th, 1970 no-hitter while under the influence of LSD. Or D, all of these, I guess. I don't know. I fell asleep trying to find something interesting to say about baseball.
Oh, tell me about it, man. I had to do a whole fucking essay. It's definitely D.
It is.
All right. No, which of the following is the best movie about cheating in baseball and organized crime?
Oh.
A, Raging Bull Durham. B, Walk, Balk, and Two Corking Barrels.
Nice.
Nice. There's two baseball things and then a third one.
Yep.
Cork. You cork the barrel. It's an illegal
Yeah,
thing.
you
You're
do.
not
That's
allowed
how
to do
you
it. It makes
cheat.
you hit
That
the
would
ball
be-
further.
Yeah.
3 baseball things. 3. Triple. Or C, Donnie Brastro. Astros
All
cheated.
right.
They're cheaters.
It's-
Cheat.
you know what? Honestly, I liked B better, but I'm going to have to, for your sake, Heath, say C. It's Donnie Brasco.
Thank you. C is correct. The other one's also kind of, but mostly C.
All right, Noah, what's more interesting than baseball? A, listening to that Bitcoin guy at your job talk about Bitcoin. B, watching any child you don't love do any kind of performance of any kind of art. C, looking at your wife's friend's handmade jewelry.
While being pressured to buy it. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. Mhm.
D, all of the above, including soccer, which is so boring it has fucking ties.
All right. More interesting than baseball. It's definitely not the handmade. I'm going to go with B, watching some other motherfucker's kid do stuff.
I'm so sorry, but my child is interesting no matter what he does. It was actually,
that's right.
this is the Bitcoin guy.
Oh, okay. All right. I get it now. I see it. So obvious once you say that.
By the way, soccer is awesome, but yeah, the tie thing, you got to get rid of the tie thing, guys. Come on, D up. That's ridiculous. Eli wins or something.
All right, I win. So I'm going to choose next week's essayist, Tom.
Which means you all lose.
All right. Well, for Tom, Noah, and Eli, I'm Heath. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Tom will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can hear Tom and Cecil on Cognitive Dissonance, and you can hear Eli, Noah, and myself on God Awful Movies, Scathing Atheist, Skeptocrat, and D&D Minus. And if you'd like to pay for your porn, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, listen to past episodes, connect with us on social media, or take a look at the show notes, check out citationpod.com.
And now I just move my leg over here.
Ow, ow, ow. You're stretching the band again.
The band is going to stretch, Tom. I have told you this.
We should have just done my idea.
Well, we certainly should have done one of our ideas, shouldn't we?
And this is Squeaks Yellow Hash, a fine first baseman, but you wouldn't know it based on the way he's going to play. Isn't that right, Squeaks?
It sure is.
And of course, where would we be without nouns that...
Why? Because
he squeaks, yeah.
Wait, did I just block Tom's joke like twice
Yeah,
now?
Yours was more naturally in it. It's fine.
Sorry, that's 2 times I blocked your joke, and
That's okay.
I'm
didn't
keeping all of this. I'm
read
doing
it.
this. People need to know.
Stay in.
People need to know what Heath did to Tom.
It works better. It works better.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.